All right, let's get to today's Health Watch. As we approach more months aimed towards chronic illness awareness and its survivors, it's important to highlight the emotional challenges they face and understand grief.
And joining us now this morning to share some tips on how to navigate through all of that is our friend Natalie Poole. We're so glad to have you here with us.
Thank you. Nice to be back.
So specifically, we're talking about breast cancer, and we're talking about actually the after effects of survivors that this isn't often talked about.
It isn't. I'll tell you, so October is here. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and so we're inundated with information about Susan G. Komen, walks, and all of those things, and the awareness is absolutely magnificent. But what we oftentimes fail to think about are those who have survived and what that awareness can do to their mental, how it can take them back to a time when they were actually diagnosed. It can take them back to a time where they begin thinking about all the things they went through physically when it came to chemo, radiation, maybe even surgeries. And I take this very personally because as a breast cancer survivor myself, I know what this month can do. While it's great to be involved in other people who are fighting the fight, sometimes just because you've been in remission doesn't mean that you still don't have some emotional challenges related to it. So I think it's worthy to talk about. One of the things I think about is being able to be with a community of people that understand is so hugely important. So if there are groups that you can be a part of, that's also really important. But we don't talk about is survivor's guilt. Because as we're on those walks, we think oftentimes about those who didn't make it like we did. And I remember when going through cancer at the end, there was a quote that said something about, now that it's over, many people who've been there cheering you on are like, oh, she's great now. But in all actuality, you still got those remnants. So I think it's worthy to talk about some things that we can do to kind of support our mental health as we go through, not even Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but each month now there's a new awareness, whether it's for lupus or whatever the health challenge could be, to help people get through it.
Yeah, I mean, chronic illness is such a big part of our society now with medical advances.
Absolutely.
But you do talk about the emotional part of it. So how do people get through this? I mean, survivor guilt's a huge thing. So how do people cope with this?
I think one of the things we have to remember is we are not our diagnosis. It's very easy to become attached to it. Almost even nurse it as if, oh my goodness, this is where I'm at in life. And you don't have to. Once you have gotten through it, and even when you're on your road to it, there's so many things in life to be positive about, so many things to celebrate. And if we can focus on those wins, so much greater than those lows, oh, it helps every day. I think gratitude is huge. Journaling is such a magnificent way of writing down your thoughts so that you can go back and revisit them. I know I journaled during my time, and so now to be able to go back and realize, wow, I'm on the other side, helps me focus on where I'm at today than where I was before. So I always say depression is focusing a lot on the past, anxiety is focusing a lot on the future. And I think when you're going through any chronic illness, you need to be more present now. So not next, not before, but now.
That can be said about so many things, being
Yes,
present in
for
the moment.
sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you talk about some of these ways to actually get through the times when you are triggered, right?
Yes.
When that traumatic response kind of comes back. What are some practical ways, aside from, like you mentioned, that things that you can do day to day to help?
So I think one of the things I would encourage, especially if it's during a time where there's a lot of awareness, maybe limiting your media. It's great to be a part of it, but once you know what you need to know, you can kind of tune away. Exercise is huge. Sometimes just going for a walk, getting outdoors, getting away from your day-to-day, taking your time to reflect on where you've been, but where you're at now is hugely important. But I would say media is a big one because it's you turn on the news, you see pink shirts, you go into the bank, you see this, even car dealerships, which we appreciate the support, but you have to be aware of when it's too much for you. So knowing what's too much for you and then knowing how to dial back. And then even those conversations, when you are a breast cancer survivor or any type of survivor from chronic illness, a lot of times people will call you for advice. And you just may not be in a position at that time to render it because you're still dealing with your own healing process. So knowing how to set boundaries and say, I would love to be there for you, but actually this conversation is a little challenging for me right now. I'd like to spend another time or get with you another time when I'm able to have this discussion better.
What would you say to family members or loved ones who are trying to support, somebody who has come through a chronic illness? Because obviously there's a lot of positivity. They always put on a positive face.
Yes.
But I've never gone through a chronic illness, but I've gone through some tough times and people are always in your face, like championing you and cheering you on. But sometimes you just want them to be like, hey, and maybe ask you a question and talk about like how you're actually feeling. What would you say to them?
I love that you asked that question. That's so important. I think sometimes in our effort to be supportive, we start asking questions like, well, what stage was it? And we get so deep into these questions and the person is still processing it. So I think to be supportive, sometimes just sit there in the space with them and allow them to share what they feel they're willing or ready to share at that time, versus inundating them with a lot of questions. Space with them is just important as maybe asking those questions that isn't necessary at the time. I think that's a big thing.
So curious, I mean, is it more healing to actually open up, obviously to those around you, but even the greater circle? Or for some folks, I mean, a lot of people keep their medical situations private.
You know, it's very individual. It's very individual. I remember for myself, as I was going through, I was diagnosed in actually June of 2020. I didn't share anything until October, but then I felt forced to because it was October Awareness Month.
So you felt you had to
right.
come, yeah.
But I found the support that I got was so hugely healing, but I wasn't ready prior to that. Because I was still processing it. So I would say both are meaningful, but you have to choose the time when you can kind of deal with maybe all of the support, because sometimes you're just not even ready to take all of that in. So I think both are meaningful, but knowing when you're ready to be able to talk about it is important.
Because sometimes the support and all that attention can also be overwhelming for some
Hugely
folks.
overwhelming. I think it's overwhelming because you don't know what to do with it, and there's a lot of fear of, will I make it through? And so you're constantly kind of thinking about your mortality. And so when you're having someone constantly coming to you, you almost can't even hear them because you're focused on something completely different.
Now, is this something you kind of have to take on yourself, or are there resources available for people to get help with?
There are amazing resources. That's the beautiful thing right now about awareness. There's so many resources. So if you have been diagnosed or you have been in survivorship, there's Wayne State University has amazing resources. Many of the local hospitals have groups that you can meet with that are phenomenal in helping you get through this. But then even practices like myself, because I am a breast cancer survivor, we actually even specialize in those who have gone through chronic illness. So reaching out to a therapist can be hugely beneficial.
And that's good to know there's a lot of
Yeah,
resources.
so important to get that help. Natalie, thank you so much. Such an
Absolutely.
important topic. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thanks for being here.